Hello everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Destiny video. Today we got a bunch of spoilers for Way of the Force. These come directly from Fantasy Flight, the Golden Dice podcast, and Discard to Reroll, as well as a few that were just leaked apparently. Not sure leaked by who, but we're going to leave links in the description to where you can check all them out. We're going to jump into the cards, I'm going to give my thoughts on them. We got some really cool stuff today. So, first card up here we have is Snoke, Supreme Leader, 11 health, 11 13. So, again, the 1-to-1 ratio. Um, 2 indirect damage, focus, 2 focus, disrupt, resource, and blank. Leader character. And as a power action, deal 1 damage to another one of your characters, resolve one of its character dice, increasing its value by 2. So let's say you have the example they used in the article was Kylo, so tormented one from the two-player starter. Let's say you have him on the 2 melee side, and he's rolled out. You could use Snoke's power action to deal 1 damage to Kylo to increase that 2 melee to 4 melee, which is pretty good. So I think his health is good. So he's got 11. Again, 11 or 13. Again, I like that 1-to-1 ratio. They seem to be hitting that a lot with Way of the Force. So 1 damage side with the 2 indirect. He can focus stuff, so he's got a single focus and a double focus. Can get rid of resources and make resources. So that is Snoke. I'm not sure how I really feel about him. I like the power action, and his focus size are really good. I'm not sure though if you're playing with him if he's just going to get targeted right away to prevent him from using his power action. So let's say you have a character that has a 3 damage side showing, you can hit that character for 1 damage to resolve that 3 for 5 damage. So that can be pretty strong. So I think his power action is really good. And then I think the sides are decent. So we have the damage as well as focus, disrupt, and resource. So that is Snoke, Supreme Leader. We're going to move into our next card. Be right back with that. And next up, we have Power from Pain, 0 cost, blue villain event. Again, 0 cost, spot 2 blue characters or Snoke to deal 1 damage to one of your characters, then turn one of that character or upgrade dice to any side. So you're going to hit a character for damage. You're then going to be able to immediately flip that die to whatever side you want. Pretty strong effect. However, I would want to be able to couple it with something that gives it ambush, because it would be not great if you were to play this, hit a character for 1 damage, flip their die, and then have your opponent mitigate it somehow, or somehow like use it against you with something like I am your father, which lets them resolve it, or something like that. So I think playing this with ambush is going to definitely be much more beneficial than just playing it, dealing the damage, flipping the die, and hoping your opponent doesn't somehow remove that die. So that is Power from Pain. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have Torment, 1 resource, Villain Blue upgrade. After the attached character is dealt damage, you may exhaust this upgrade to gain 1 resource. So this really goes hand in hand with Snoke's power action as well as Power from Pain. You're going to put this on a character, use Snoke's power action, hit them for damage, potentially resolve one of their character dice for 2 more, as well as gain a resource from Torment. Or if you use it with Power from Pain, you're going to play Power from Pain, hit that character for damage, flip their die to whatever side you want, as well as gain a resource. And then if you were to somehow give Power from Pain ambush, like we mentioned, you would get a resource to then potentially use to resolve a resource cost side on one of those dice. So Torment could be pretty interesting, especially if somehow this is your last character left, and it's the only character your opponent can attack, the only character you can assign damage to if you're doing indirect. You're going to then get a resource whenever they take damage, or at least up to, I imagine, 2 times in a round, possibly if you have 2 copies of Torment on that character. I don't know if you would want to do that, but I do think for 1 resource, you dealing your character is going to be taking damage regardless. So this is definitely going to pay for itself with the first damage you take because you'll be able to exhaust it and get that resource back. So Torben, pretty interesting card. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have Imperial Troop Transport. Um, Villain red support, 3 resources. X range damage for a resource, X indirect, X disrupt, X shield, and blank. Support vehicle. The X on this die is equal to the number of non-unique characters you have in play. So most you're going to get out of this. Let's say you run a 5 battle droid deck. You will have 5 range for a resource, 5 indirect, 5 disrupt, and 5 shield. Could be pretty strong. So 3 resources to get it out. But if you're just running a deck that is all non-unique, this could do a ton of damage. So again, the most you're going to be able to get out of it is 5 if you just go with all battle droids. You're probably not going to be doing that just because the battle droids will probably die fairly quickly. But this, let's say you run a deck with 4 characters, you get 4 out of all the X's, and it is just non-uniques. So it could be you can still run red. You can run rainbow with this, and just as long as all your characters are non-unique, this will do more damage and have better sides than if you're running it with unique like main characters or anything like that. But again, some 3 damage sides. Disrupt has disrupt and shields, and let's say it costs 3. So I think that's a fairly balanced price, fairly a good price to pay to get this out. Just because if you're running all non-uniques, you're going to have high values on these sides. It will be a die that if you are running a complete deck with just our non-unique characters, this die will probably attract a lot of removal. But I think if you can get it out and potentially get it out with maybe, let's say, somehow roll it in and maybe somehow ambush it in somehow, you would be able to resolve a ton of damage all at once. So that is the Imperial Troop Transport. We're going to move into our next card. And next up we have DJ, Treacherous Rogue, 11 health, 13 or 16 points. 2 range damage, disrupt, discard, resource blank, scoundrel character. After you remove 1 or more of an opponent's dice, you may deal 1 indirect damage to that opponent for each die you just removed. I think this card is awesome. Really want to build a deck with DJ, even if it's just at a single die, because that ability is just really strong, especially in yellow. So you can even pair him, let's say, with like a blue character, get access to even more removal, and every die you remove while DJ is still in play is going to do 1 indirect damage, like per die. So let's say you do something like I think it's dive and defend, or even block and dodge. Let's say they have 3 dice showing either of those damage types. You play block, you play dodge, or dive, or defend, and remove that many dice. So I believe, let's say you're removing 3 dice, that's 3 indirect damage. So stuff like Entangle becomes really useful. So you get rid of 2 dice, and then you're also doing indirect damage with it as well. So really strong ability with him. Really looking forward to trying to build a deck with DJ. So he's got his 2 damage sides, plus whatever you remove dice with card effects or specials or anything, you are going to be dealing indirect damage. So I think this ability is just really powerful. So just think of all the yellow removal you have, the neutral removal. If you pair him with blue, you get access to stuff like Feel Your Anger, Isolation, to remove even more dice and potentially do even more indirect damage. So really think he's strong, and then also he's got the 2 damage side, so he can also just hit characters for 2 range damage, and those are on 2 of his sides. So this is the villain legendary, and I'm really looking forward to this card. This card looks amazing. So that is DJ. We're going to move into our next card. And next card we have is Jabba the Hutt, Renowned Gangster, 12 health, 12 or 16 points, so we get that 1-to-1 ratio again. 2 focus, resource, resource, special, special, blank. He's a leader and a scoundrel. Special. Deal indirect damage to an opponent equal to the number of dice showing a special, including this die. I'm not sure how I feel about this, just because you're basically the special only really does damage if there are other special showings. So at the very least, it's going to do 1 indirect damage. But if you're playing against, let's say you're playing against a deck that doesn't run a lot of specials, his special is only going to be doing 1. It's got 1 more health than the Awakenings Jabba. Cost more. The original Jabba was, I think, 1114. See if I can find them here. Yep, 1114. And had 11 health instead of 12. The double focus is nice, and he has double resources. But the old Jabba had 2 single focus sides, 2 disrupt, 2 discard, resource, and a blank. I think the old Jabba is just, even with being 1 health less, is just a much better Jabba, and it'll let you reroll a yellow die when you rolled it in. This one, unless you're playing a deck that against a deck that just has a lot of specials in it, or you're playing a deck that has a lot of specials and your opponent is playing with a lot of specials, I can see this this special really only just doing 1 indirect in most cases, I think. So, not a fan of the new Jabba. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have Extreme Hubris. 2 resources, yellow villain event. Spot 2 yellow characters or Jabba to resolve 1 of your character dice without removing it from your pool. So I think you could use this with old Jabba because it just says spot Jabba the Hutt or 2 yellow characters. So it doesn't specify that it has to be a certain version of Jabba, just that it has to be Jabba the Hutt. But resolve 1 of your character dice without removing it from your pool. So that effect is kind of strong. It could be kind of expensive though, so 2 resources, plus you have to either be playing Jabba or have 2 other yellow characters that you can spot. But being able to resolve a die without removing it is really good. If you can give this ambush somehow with something like Swiftness, you're going to be paying 3 resources to do that. So you play Swiftness, give Extreme Hubris ambush, maybe use it to focus your other dice into some more damage, and then using the ambush that Swiftness gave you on Extreme Hubris, then resolve those dice. So that could be decent. Other than that, I'm not sure if this card is going to see play or not. I do like that they're doing these cards that'll have an alternate, almost an alternate casting cost or an alternate cost to play it, where you could run this in a deck that doesn't have Jabba, but you have to spot 2 characters, or if you're running it with Jabba, you only have to spot him. There's a lot of cards in Way of the Force that are doing this, and I think that's kind of cool. But that is Extreme Hubris. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have Payoff. This is one of the cards that was just leaked. I believe there's another card coming up that was also leaked like this, so it looks like it was taken with a camera, not like from just like a PR release from FFG. But 0 resources, neutral villain event. Give an opponent 2 of your resources to resolve 1 of their character dice or upgrade dice as if it were your own. So I like that it's 0 resources, but it's still basically going to cost 2 anyway. So pay 0 for the card, give your opponent 2, resolve 1 of their dice against them. That's interesting enough because you are resolving the die as if it were your own, doing damage to them possibly, and then getting rid of that die as well because you are removing it once it gets resolved. However, you are giving your opponent 2 resources, so there is definitely a drawback to that, to where now maybe they can get enough resources to play like an event that might help them win, or an upgrade or something like that. Not sure if this is going to be any good, but that is paid off. So basically, you just give them 2 resources to resolve 1 of their dice against them. That's going to do it for this card. We're going to move on to our next card. And next up, we have Sticky Situation. 1 resource, villain yellow event. Force an opponent to choose a die, then remove a different die. So if your opponent has a bunch of stuff rolled out, you are then paying 1 resource, playing this, forcing them to choose which die to keep, basically, and then choosing 1 of their other dice to remove. So if you're playing a deck with DJ, this will trigger his indirect damage ability. So your opponent is going to basically just be like, what die do I not want removed? What die is the most important die in my pool right now? I'll choose that, and then the opponent gets to choose another one of them to remove. So that can be pretty interesting. Um, don't know if I think still is better removal because this is like let's say he doesn't like you. If you have a blank and your opponent has like a special, you play he doesn't like you, remove your blank, removing their special. Playing a DJ deck will do indirect damage. This allows you to remove a die at the cost of a resource, but then basically your opponent chooses which one of the dice they don't want removed. So that is sticky situation. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have Leia Organa, Heart of the Resistance, 11 health, 12 or 15 points. Red Hero Legendary. Another one, I think Rex is the other Red Hero Legendary. So 2 focus, discard, 2 discard, shield resource and blank, leader character. Power action. Remove one of your character dice to discard cards from the top of a deck equal to the value showing on that die. So power action, let's say you have a die that has a resource cost and you don't have any resources to resolve it. You could use Leia's power action to remove it and then discard cards from the top of the deck equal to whatever the die was. So let's say it was like 3 damage for a resource and you don't have a resource. You can use her power action to remove the die. You're not going to do damage, but you'll get rid of 3 cards off the top. Really strong sides, I think. So we have a double focus, 2 discard sides. So you can give shields and also get resources. Easily going to fit into a variety of build decks, even maybe something with Elite Leia, Elite Yoda. And then you would have, see, 13, so 28, you would have 2, you could run a 2-point plot. You could even just run Espionage and discard the top card of your deck and your opponent's deck. I'm not really a big fan of Espionage because you may end up building something off of your deck that you really need. But I think she could be really strong with Yoda. So Yoda can use his special to Yoda, I believe, also has discard, but use his special to discard the top card of the deck, and then maybe flip Leia into one of her, like her 2 discard or her 2 focus or something like that. Leia doesn't have the special, so you can't really special train off of that. So that might be a downside to using Yoda with her. But I think a Yoda Leia build deck could be a lot of fun because you may roll Leia in, hit her two discard side and like a resource side. You roll Yoda in. Let's say you hit both his specials. Can then you like get rid of 2 cards. So one special to get rid of a card. Next one to maybe like focus the other Leia die. Another one to discard the top card of the deck and maybe like gain a shield. And then on a future turn, you can then resolve Leia's discard sides. So I think she's got some really good like utility sides here. So we got her. She has her focus. She can get resources and shields, and then has a 2 and a 1 for discarding out a hand. And also, I like that her power action hits the deck, and her dice sides can hit their hands, and you can mill out of 2 different areas. And with her power action, it doesn't have to be her die that you remove. So you could remove, let's say, one of Yoda's dice to mill, or you could pair her with another character that has damage, and then remove those dice to end up discarding cards. So really looking forward to possibly building a build deck with Leia. So that is Leia Organa. We're going to move into our next card. And next up we have Motivate, 0 resources, red hero event. Spot 2 red characters or Leia Organa to resolve one of your character dice, increasing its value by 1. So another one of these cards where you can either spot 2 of the same color or Leia herself to get a die increased by 1. So pretty simple effect, but again, they did. I think this will also work with the original Leia Organa from Awakenings because we have basically General Leia in this set and Princess Leia or just Leia Organa from Awakenings, which was Hoth Leia basically, or Empire Strikes Back Leia. But you would be able to use that as well to potentially like because she had range damage on her dice, potentially get more damage out of her dice or your other character. So that is Motivate. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have Gungan Catapult, so another one of the leaked cards. 4 resources. This is a red hero support artillery. 2 range damage, 4 indirect damage, 6 indirect damage for 2 resources, 3 disrupt, and 2 blanks. And after you activate a Gungan, you may reroll this die. So I'm not a fan of a 4 cost support having double blanks on it. But the sides are fairly strong. So we have a 2, a 4 indirect, a 6 indirect for 2 resources, and also 3 disrupt. And then if you're playing a Gungan deck, if you roll a Gungan in, let's say you roll the catapult in and it hits blanks, you can then roll a Gungan in later to potentially hit one of the damage sides or the disrupt after you activate that Gungan because you get a reroll on the catapult. Again, not a fan of a 4 cost card having 2 blanks on it. But the ability to re-roll it if you're just playing a Gungan deck is pretty strong. So you can like roll in a Gungan, I think it's Gungan Warrior. So roll the catapult in, hits blanks. Roll the Gungan Warrior, re-roll it. Let's say it hits 2 damage, you get that possibly resolve it, and then later, like next, maybe play strategic planning, ready it, roll it again, activate your other Gungan, and re-roll the catapult. So the re-roll ability I think is pretty cool. Still, again, not a fan of it costing 4 and having double blanks. But that is the Gungan Catapult. We're going to move into our next card. And next up, we have the N1 Starfighter. Yellow Hero Support Vehicle, 3 resources, 2 range damage, 3 indirect damage, 2 shields, resource special, and blank. Special, ready or discard an exhausted vehicle that is not a copy of this support. So really flexible special here. So you can ready one of your other vehicles. So this may slot well into a vehicle deck because you'll be able to roll a vehicle in, resolve it. If you then hit the N1 Starfighter special, you'll be able to ready one of your other vehicles that isn't an N1 Starfighter. And if your opponent has some big exhausted vehicles in play, you can discard their exhausted vehicle. So again, special ready or discard an exhausted vehicle in play that is not an N1 Starfighter. So your opponent rolls in an ATST or like a U-Wing, Millennium Falcon, anything like that, and you hit the special on the N1 Starfighter, you resolve it, and then you could discard that support or one of those supports, or ready one of your own. So really flexible special. I think the cost is pretty fair as well. So again, we have 2 damage sides. We have the 2 range, 3 indirect. I like the 2 shield side as well, and a really strong special, which is just really flexible depending on if you're playing a vehicle deck. You may want to use it to ready your own vehicles, or if you're playing against a vehicle deck, you can use it to get rid of your opponent's vehicles. So that is the N1 Starfighter. We're going to move into our next card. Next up, we have In the Crosshairs. Neutral yellow event, 3 resources, has ambush, so you get a second action after you play it. Choose a symbol, then remove any number of dice showing that symbol. So, let's say your opponent has a really good damage roll. Let's say they roll out 3 dice, and they all hit damage. You can then, on your turn, play In the Crosshairs, choose range damage, or whatever the damage type was, or whatever the symbol is, and then remove um, any number of dice showing that symbol. I guess that you can also remove your own dice if you wanted to. I don't know why you would, but you can. Let's say your opponent, like I said, has those 3 dice showing damage. You choose that damage type, they get removed, and then you take another action, such as maybe like claiming the battlefield or something like that. So let's say you didn't have a whole lot left to do. Your opponent rolled out that damage, and they would have resolved it on their next turn. But you use this to get rid of those dice, and then you get one more action to do something like claim. Really strong again with DJ. So let's say you remove those 3 dice. That's going to be his ability will deal 3 indirect damage to the opponent. So this could be really strong in a deck with him, especially if you're running a deck that has good resource generation. So it is a 3-cost event, but in a deck where each die you remove is dealing indirect damage, it could be really powerful. So that is In the Crosshairs. We're going to move into our next card. And our final card for today is Reconstruct. 1 resource, neutral red event. Add a support from your discard pile to your hand. So in this set, there's a lot of support removal. or especially vehicle removal. So stuff like again the N1 Starfighter Special, Sebulba always wins can get rid of supports that have tokens on them of any kind. So if it has like a damage token on it, like a backup muscle, Sebulba always wins can get rid of it. This is a way to get some of those cards back. I like that you can use this card with something like the Resistance Bomber. So let's say you use the Resistance Bomber, you resolve it 3 times, so you place a damage counter on it each time. Once it has 3 on it, it gets discarded. You can then spend the resource to get that back. Um, Especially, again, since there is just a lot of ways to remove um, supports in this set. And then if you go into the other sets, there's stuff like the ATSC Special, Sabotage, and a bunch of other stuff to get rid of those supports. This will allow you to get those supports back. However, you are spending a resource to be able to do that. So you may or may not be able to always get that card back out again because you are spending a resource to be able to put it back into your hand. So, not sure how good this card is going to be, but it is definitely interesting because it gives us a way to get those cards out of the discard pile once they've been either discarded for a reroll or removed from by your opponent's amount, or by yourself. If it's a card that has a certain number of damage on it, like the bomber, it has to get discarded. This will let you get it out of there, out of the discard pile. So that is the final card for today. Again, there'll be a link in the description to where you can check out the Fantasy Flight article, as well as the Discard for Reroll spoilers, as well as the Golden Dice podcast. So again, links in the description for all those. That's going to do it for this video. We'll be back whenever there are more spoilers showing up. It looks like we're getting spoilers daily now, so I imagine we'll be getting them up until the release of the set. So there'll be whenever more spoilers are revealed, I'll be doing videos on them. Again, that's going to do it for now. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. We'll see you again next time. I want to thank you again for watching, and take care.